Hi, this is Luciana Paulise, culture coach, and today I'm super happy to have Lynn Cherry with Wizeline, and she will talk about diversity and the LGBT. So please, Lynn, introduce yourself and your company.
Thank you, Luciana, and thank you for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about this really important topic of LGBTQ plus
Yes.
inclusivity and diversity. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, as you mentioned, my name is Lynn Cherry. I'm Chief Legal Officer and Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Wizeline. And Wizeline is a tech services company. We work for a variety of clients in different industries, and we provide digital transformation and technology solutions to companies' greatest challenges. So
Hmm.
it's really fun in that respect. I mean, people they ask me two questions. They ask me, why Wizeline? And then, why have I stayed? And my response is like, what could be more exciting than being able to figure out great ways to connect people and impact people's lives through technology, which I think is super exciting, especially now that people, post COVID are living their lives more and more online. And so it's been wonderful in that respect. I have so much respect and admiration for our engineers. And why I stay is related to diversity and inclusion. And Wizeline is such a unique culture. I've been at big companies, sort of corporate America kind of companies in the past. And I recognize that Wiseline's different. And I think it goes to like an authenticity to diversity and inclusion
Hmm.
that relates to kind of our DNA, which relates to like the story of our founder. So Bismarck Leppy is the founder of the company. He is first generation immigrant from Mexico. His parents were migrant farmers, and they moved to the US. They were able to move to the US. So that's where Bismarck grew up. And they taught Bismarck like respect for all and the importance of education. And so he goes on to Stanford. He's an early employee at Google. He sees like all this great opportunity in tech. He, has his first startup in Silicon Valley and is like a big believer that talent is evenly dispersed. It's really opportunity that's not. Like he sees that in himself. He sees that in what his parents told him. And he creates his first office for his first startup in Guadalajara. Then it comes time to create his second startup, and that's when I got together with Bismarck, and he had created the main development center in Guadalajara, and because he saw like so much potential for talent, and he created this part of Wizeline, that's Wizeline Academy, to fill in some of the gaps and provide opportunity and connect with the community where we operate. And got involved in startups and with Tech de Monterrey, which is a big university there. And um, and as a result of that, we had a really diverse employee base from the beginning. And that diverse employee base, they were given the autonomy to set up a culture that they wanted to work in. And that was like early on at Wizeline, before I got to the company, we had an employee resource group that, where, we would talk about, the rights of women, the rights of LGBTQ community. And it really is part of the culture. And I felt that when I got to the company, and that's why I stayed, and that's I think what drove drove this current position, which is I started out as just chief legal officer, but have assumed fairly recently the role of head of diversity and inclusion, and I'm so honored to have that role at a company like this.
Well, yes, that's amazing what you're telling me, because um, I guess it's great that you talk about the story of the founder, because that makes a lot of sense. That's why he would give so much importance to having a position named head of diversity, because it's usually a position that is ingrained into the human resources positions maybe, but really something different. It's something that needs to be worked on very particularly, right? And only he can know that, because he probably been an immigrant. I'm an immigrant too, and I'm a woman. I'm a woman, so you recognize those things. You recognize that sometimes you are not given the opportunity, but again, it doesn't mean that you don't have the talent, but it may be more difficult to find your place, right? But it's great that someone that has been there decides to, okay, I want to give opportunities to other people. I know how they feel, so let's do something about it.
Yes,
Amazing. So tell
yes.
me more about your position. So what do you do as head of diversity?
Well, so we talked a little bit about this, and we could talk about some of the ways that work for us at Wizeline. And I think it's instructive, because we're a small company. So it shows that even as a small company, I mean, we don't do as much, I'm sure, as, Google and Amazon and Facebook, but as a small company, I feel like there's a lot that we do that works
Mhm.
and
How
doesn't.
many employees work for Wizeline?
We have 1,100, but we're around 1,100. We're a
Mm-hmm.
little bit above 1,100 now. So, and when I got to the company, we were maybe 300. And that was so, but we still had like these institutions in place, the Academy, Wizeline Academy, which offers free education, and then the ERG. And that's kind of what I think those are the, if we're sort of limiting the discussion to 5 ways that we can increase inclusivity among LGBTQ employees, I think those are the first 2. And so education, is so important. And, Wizeline Academy, it's instrumental in expanding the funnel of diverse talent. And that's wonderful, because that's a start. But it's also instrumental in advancing the careers of Wizeliners once they get to the company, whether it's, increasing hard skills, like allowing engineers to specialize in certain really sought after roles, like data engineering or mobile engineering. But Academy also focuses on soft skills as well, like effective communication techniques, storytelling as an effective way of communicating. And it's these soft skills that set Wizeliners up to teach other Wizeliners. And so that's important for you to know about Academy, is it's employee-led, mostly educational opportunities. And I think, so that's kind of good on both sides. And it also sets Wizeliners up to provide great educational initiatives in the area of LGBTQ plus inclusivity. And an example of that is we have these LGBTQ plus open talks, and it's Wizeliners coming forward and talking about like whether LGBTQ plus is a choice, bisexuality, my journey as a gay man in tech, happy to be me as a transgender woman. Like these are pretty heavy topics. And, it's funny, like talking about the impact. When I first joined the company, it was maybe my second time to the Guadalajara office. And I get invited to the open talk on bisexuality, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't really, understand fully the culture yet. I'm like, I wonder who approved that. Like, I'm the legal counsel, like,
Right.
that have gone through the executive committee. And so I was curious about it, and I went. And I was just blown away by the fact that it was so respectful. People were there to really learn. And the speaker was so courageous to get up there in front of everyone and tell, their story. And I think that that's one of the great impacts that these open talks have especially within the LGBTQ plus community, but I think across all of Wizeline is, number one, it sparks other Wizeliners to feel open about telling their story. And as a result, like, I think seeing that makes people feel safe and that they can bring their authentic self to work. And what Wizeliners do as engineers is very creative. Like, I mean, when you think about it, and they, we want them to be happy and productive and creative when we go to a client and address how to solve a challenge, how to create a great site and user experience. So I think that that's really helpful. And I think it's really nice because we have offices in Mexico, in the US, and Vietnam, as well as other places. But in those places in particular, like, and across our offices, people are invited to participate, remotely. And so you also like get diverse perspectives on LGBTQ plus community. And I think there's a lot of learning that goes on just like in discussions and Q&A that takes place, and interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great because as you said, people are feeling more open, are feeling psychologically safe to speak up. And in innovation or in tech industry, if you want to innovate, you cannot force that. You need to make people feel comfortable about themselves, right? About bringing their whole self to work, no matter, could be about their sex, but could be about anything else, right? You can never mention everything, but it's good that as you're saying, by self-training, they are able to bring all the things that are interesting for them. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what about you mentioned that at first you had resource groups. So do you think that is enough, or you need something else? Because sometimes I figure like resource groups are good for yeah, I mean, you are part of a certain minority and you can discuss that with other people that are in the same situation. But what about the rest of the company, right?
Mhm.
How they feel about that too. So do you think resource groups are good, or is there any other alternative or anything different that you do about it?
Yeah. Well, I so the employee resource group is comprised of, I mean, as it relates to LGBTQ plus, it definitely involves employees in that community, but it also involves allies.
Mm-hmm.
Like our employee resource group, like they do things like movie night, things that are easy to access. Like, movies, I think, is a great way to get people together and also start a dialogue. And especially now, there's such great films in the LGBTQ plus community that depict the community so positively. It wasn't always that way. And so I think I think people even outside the community are really interested and learn a lot. And I mean, I feel like it is a great way for people to grow. and it does offer a positive experience and helpful and development experience for people outside the LGBTQ community. And I mean, we encourage everyone to get involved. And our employee resource group is pretty broad. It includes like things like social responsibility, environmental, impact, as well as, some of the other areas like LGBTQ plus women. We have, big women in leadership part of our ERG. And we also are focused on disabilities. So I feel like it brings everybody together to learn about each other, which is part of our culture, like just a respect for everyone, no matter what background or, angle they're coming from. It's a real opportunity to expand our horizons. Even me, I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community, but I'm so interested in learning more about people with disabilities, and it's exciting what we can do with technology to address the needs of that community, right? And of course, women, interested in that because I think, especially in technology, we need women at the table and their perspectives reflected in the technology we're building as well.
Right. So I would say, based on what you mentioned, is that these employee resource groups are important for creating a safe space, but it's also important that they organize activities that are open for everyone, so that you start mixing the knowledge, the feeling, all the different things that these communities go through, right? And maybe you never know, you can discover a lot with that. Maybe you are outside, but maybe you want to be part of it and learn more, or maybe you have family that that you can help. So that's amazing. So what advice would you give to other companies so that they start being more diverse? Is there anything that they can do, maybe during the hiring or maybe during the retention? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I do think that those are important areas. I mean, the first you're talking about is, kind of, what I would refer to as like policies and practices. And, like you said, I mean, it's not just about creating inclusivity for Wizeliners. It's also like instilling this inclusivity into our recruitment process to be able to expand our numbers.
Right.
And it's interesting because I read, there was a recent McKinsey study. It was great. I hadn't known about it before, but it came out in sort of the latter part of 2020, I believe. And it's all about LGBTQ community in the workplace. And they were saying that of their respondents in the LGBTQ plus community, 58% said that they had not taken a job because they didn't feel like the company was inclusive, and safe for them. Totally.
Wow.
And then it said like 40% of all respondents said if they didn't feel safe and they didn't feel like it was inclusive, that they would reject the job. 40% of all respondents, not just LGBTQ plus. So I think that, like, I was like, wow, I'm happy that we're doing things in that area. And I do think that it shows how important it is to do that. And we do have a recruitment handbook that we use to help us standardize, an inclusive experience for candidates, regardless of gender identity, sexual orientation, even like where they're coming from, or, culture, like that all like plays a part in that. And, we kind of make sure that like the, people ops and our recruiters and the interviewers, understand those procedures. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I read the article too, and it's very interesting, all the things that they are mentioning, and as you said, it's not just the legal part, but also how you put it in practice, how it's really perceived by people, because maybe the company can say, I'm diverse, I'm respectful for everyone, but you really don't feel that way.
Yes.
And the problem is that it's impacting both ways. It's impacting the company because they are not getting all the talent they could get. They are not accessing to yes. I mean, they maybe don't realize, but they're having a small portion of people that they can access when they could access to everyone if they
Right.
would be more diverse. And also there's an impact on the career of
Yeah.
these communities. Is that right? I saw that the article was talking about it. So what can you say about that?
So I think it's super important to like for us, surveys are super important, that we continually like monitor our employees who know the most about what we're doing, like with policies and practices, but also with benefits, to make sure that we're like being as as respectful as we can to people, and to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our diverse population of employees. And I find surveys are very helpful. And the other thing is that I think is effective is like the ERG itself is a bit of like one of the roles that it plays. It creates a sense of community, and they have initiatives. The ERG we have initiatives, but we also serve as an advocacy group within the organization where like ideas can bubble up to executives. Like the way it's structured is there's an executive sponsor, which is me, and so I mean the ERG, but the ERG separately like has a direct line of communication into like really any executive that they want to talk to. I happen to go to a lot of the meetings, so anything that I would hear at that meeting that I feel like was an important indicator that we need to do something different, I would always bring that back to the executive committee and say, and tell them like we need to fix this. This is coming from our employees. It's the first question that Bismarck always asks at our executive committee meetings, like, how's the talent doing? And some of that comes from the ERG, right? I mean, can be a very effective advocate for different and additional policies, practices, benefits.
Mm-hmm. And what companies can do to make sure that all the employees can continue developing inside the company, and they are not like having less opportunities than everyone else. Do you do that through policies or through surveys, or you have other strategies that you use? Or
yeah, I mean, we use Academy for that. I mean, one thing that we're doing, which I think is really wonderful, is we have an apprenticeship program. And so the way that works is if there are, and we focus on women, we try to get more women. And if there are LGBTQ employees that we're aware of, not everyone is unfortunately willing to self-identify, but we use that to advance their careers by training them in particular roles, was what I was saying before, through Academy. And then we provide them with sort of classroom type of training. And then we work with our clients to bring them on board at, a discounted rate so that they then can match, that sort of philosophical training in what they've done, whether it's in data engineering or mobile engineering or, an SRE, site reliability engineering. They can apply that then to an actual project. And that's so important. So we're partnering with our clients to really elevate people within the Wizeline community, especially, we like to have as many people from underrepresented groups as possible. So that's one of the programs I think speaks to what you were asking.
Right. And how do you mentioned about self-identification? And I guess that's a difficult topic because probably companies that are not as open to diversity, probably you see that people are not able to self-identify. Have you seen that in your company? People feel more comfortable. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I think people that are part of the employee resource group, certainly feel comfortable. I think there is like a power in numbers. But when we roll out the inclusion survey, which we do on a periodic basis, it's all anonymous. So we do get a sense for like percentage of respondents that self-identify. And it seems pretty healthy. And then, it feels like when people self-identify anonymously, they are saying they feel pretty good about the culture and the culture of inclusiveness within the company. But we pay very close attention to that. It's important, like, to ask the right questions. And I think that concept of anonymous survey works pretty well in this area.
Wow, that's great. So anything else that you think that leaders in particular could do to help this particular group, or any advice?
Yeah, I actually, there is another area that I think is really important, and it does relate to companies taking responsibility for diversity and inclusion and sort of stepping up to the plate. And a lot of companies are doing that, which I think is wonderful. And like, we've been lucky in the US to have like some good laws and Supreme Court cases recently, actually. But I think corporations have such an important role in sort of moving public opinion, and because that's important too. You can have great laws, but if people don't feel safe and comfortable, like, to self-identify, like, you're not getting, they're not living life to the fullest. And so, I think what companies can do is they can demonstrate in a visible way their support for the community. And it was another thing about Wizeline that I loved, is when I went to the Mexican office, I saw these people wearing Wizeline pride shirts. And I was like, wow, there's so many, so many members of the LGBTQ community at this company. This is amazing. But it turns out, like, it was just allies and leaders, discipline leads, and, people all over the company that would wear, these great shirts. And there were, banners in the office about, respect for all and the importance of that, and the Altogether Council, the ERG. So I think that's really important. Supporting, like, certifications, I think is really important. So we've been getting certified by the HRC for the last few years, and it's really wonderful. And I think it's what the HRC is doing is so important, because it really, it creates table stakes. Like, you need your HRC certification to show, like, and it shows that you care about this, that you want to attract, members of the LGBTQ community. And it's really easy. It's that badge that you see on the website and right? And I think that that's an important tool. Something we do at Wizeline, which I sort of referred to when I was talking about the apprenticeship program, is we try to partner with the go-to-market team with clients to align on like the importance of inclusivity. So we're like very publicly demonstrating to the most important constituency that this is important to us. And it's usually really important to them too. And I think there's just like that understanding, that alignment is just, I think, powerful. And so we go into a relationship with the understanding that it's important to all of us. And so, if there's a Wizeliner who's staffed on a project for that client, like it just, I think that that's an important signal to that Wizeliner. So those are, a few ways. And I think they're easy things to do that don't cost a lot of money. As I mentioned, we're a small company, so we try to make the biggest impact we can with the resources we have.
Oh, that's wonderful to see when the borders are disappearing, right? And everyone is like wearing the same shirts, things like that. And also, like the borders are blurred. You don't even know where you are or what's the difference. And that's where we have to get there. And do you think that this Black Matters movement or the COVID has helped a lot to bring this topic to the table?
I do. I think, COVID itself has, number one, it's made us see how connected we are.
Yes.
Right? You can't be with your friends because you see your elderly mother, right? So it's like we're so connected. And so we see that, and we see people at home, and we see their dogs and their kids and their, we see their personal lives, and that makes us closer as well. And then at the same time, you have the Black Lives Matter movement, which, it's so important to get that right. And it's, and I feel optimistic that it's all surfacing and we're having important dialogue about it, and companies especially, right? That's an area that companies need to take responsibility for, are really, there's a momentum to it. And I feel like change is coming.
Yes, it's amazing that companies are finally realizing the importance of bringing everyone together, and how it will be impacting also the bottom line, but primarily is making people feel better and being themselves at work, wherever we are. So all this work that you are doing, Lynn, it's amazing. Thank you very much for this interview. I think it's a lot of information for people, for companies to start thinking in a different way. And as you said, luckily this is gonna be a momentum, a time of change, and this is going to get better through time. Yes. So thank you very much again. This was Luciana Paulise with Lynn Sherry with Wizeline. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.